Afternoon. On stage is Strength Luminary. We are here to pay tribute to an incredible man, Dr. Terry Todd. And these people all knew him very, very well and were integral in what has become the Arnold Strongman contest. Starting on your left, that gentleman is a legend. David P. Webster, OBE. Next to him, Steve Slater, created so many of the apparatus that the strongmen have to manipulate. Magnus Vermagnuson, one of the strongest men in the world. Another legend. One of the people that makes the clock tick, Kim Beckwith. A judge that has been with us since the very first contest, John Fair. Another man who makes things happen, Bill Duerson. The Kaz, Bill Kazmaier. Another gentleman who is part of our family, Terry Young. And our past champions, including the very first one, Mark Henry. The man who won 7 Arnold Strongman Championships, Zydrunas Savikas. What, 8? 8! A man who overcame all the odds you can possibly imagine to win the championship, Derek Poundstone. Another champion, Batutas Lalas. And these last two people are competing this weekend. Please welcome Brian Shaw. You know him as the Mountain. Just look at him. Here he is, Hathor. Now you need to understand the legacy of the man, the incredible man who is Dr. Terry Todd. He was a pioneer in powerlifting. He coached some of the strongest men in history, like Bill Kazmaier, Lamar Gant, Mark Henry. He did all kinds of media, including working for CBS, writing for Sports Illustrated. He was a college professor who specialized in the history of strength. When Jim Lorimer, Arnold's partner that organizes the whole sports festival, proposed that Dr. Terry start a strongman contest to be part of the Arnold Sports Festival, he used his knowledge of lifting history to come up again and again with unique old school events. And I'm talking about events that nobody else does. Implements to challenge the modern competitors. What is true strength? That was always his goal. When he agreed to begin the contest, started planning in 2001, the first person he talked to about the show, other than his wife, of course, was David Webster. David flew all the way from Scotland to be here today, just as he did in 2002 when he was the head official at the very first Arnold Strongman. Now, along with David and the advice of Bill Kazmaier and Steve Slater, of course, they all put all of this together and made it as unique as it possibly is. Now, Steve Slater has been more than just Terry's crew chief. He's contributed ideas, he's built equipment, like the Austrian Oak that you're about to see. And now he and Jan are directing this year's show. John Fair and Kim Beckwith go back to the beginning, as does Ode Haugen. And Magnus Vermagnuson, Bill Duerson, Carl Gillingham, Terry Young from Canada, and of course the incredible men who come together this year to help spot and load and set the stage. And you can see all of them over there in the blue shirts, the incredible crew that make this happen. Today we honor the man who changed the sport of strongman by creating this show. Jim and Barb Lorimer have brought back all the past winners of the Arnold Strongman Classic, except one. Of course, that's Mike Jenkins, who has passed away. But his spirit is with us today, I'm sure. All right. We do have a video. The video plays tribute. It'll show you more of who Dr. Terry Todd was, who he is in all of our hearts. And one more time, I would like you to give a big round of applause, not only to Dr. Terry, but to all of these people who are here to honor him. And now, if you would, please, we're going to release our athletes so they can continue to warm up for the next event. But everybody else, if you would, please direct your attention to the 2 screens on the side of the stage. and enjoy this wonderful tribute video to Dr. Terry Todd, the legend.
He has always had the visions. We each have our sort of separate set of strengths. And Terry has always been able to see 3 miles down the road as to what might come. Where I'm just sort of saying, like, can we just get through today? No, 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 we're always looking ahead. And it's actually not what I ever thought I would be doing with my life. But I'm really proud of what we've done. And I'm really proud of him.
My name is Terry Todd. I live in Austin, Texas, home of the University of Texas, which is the location of the Stark Center for Physical Culture and Sports. I was always active in sports. As a boy, I played baseball and had already taken up tennis. If you were a curious youngster who liked books and sports, University of Texas, even back then, was a fine place to have near you.
Terry, of course, was this kind of physically and intellectually larger-than-life person. His ability to imagine futures, to dream big, to try to say, you know, if we're going to do this, let's do it right. And I think people see that with what we've tried to do here.
Terry Todd.
Terry, as they're sorting things out here,
It tests overall body strength.
The heaviest and hardest ever. Terry's got it out for those guys.
With his intelligence, with his stark center, this was somebody who could really make things happen. And by heck, he has done.
The reason that this collection is here, and the reason that Jan and I put it together, is that when I was a young man in high school, you were discouraged from any weight training at all. No one in those days trained with weights. The word muscle bound was widely used then. Everyone said, you won't be able to scratch the back of your neck, you won't be able to comb your hair, brush your teeth. And it was a puzzlement to me, really. But I started lifting weights just as I graduated from high school, and I had a scholarship here at the University of Texas in tennis. I looked a bit out of place on the tennis courts. My coach was so unhappy looking out onto his beautiful tennis courts here and seeing a bunch of nice, slender, active young men, among whom some beast had gotten loose. I caused him a lot of grief. I remember once I came lumbering in and he said, I know who you are. You're that weightlifting guy. You don't need to say any more. In fact, I'm not going to give you any advice except to stop weightlifting. The worst thing any athlete in any sport could do. You know, I can just look at you and see. You don't look like a tennis player, for God's sakes. You're bigger than the football players. So I meekly crept out backwards out of the door, hoping I'd get out alive. So the springtime of my junior year, I stepped away and kept my body in the weight room from then on. This made me a believer. As I got into it, I thought, why in the world would people believe this nonsense? It's easy to see if you do it that it does not make you muscle bound. I could jump higher when I weighed 340 than I could when I weighed 195, which is what I weighed when I started. So therefore, I began to study it. My avocation, lifting, became my academic focus.
When I met Terry, I was an undergraduate student at Mercer University in Macon, Georgia. I had never done sports. He was the guy who kept coming up with all the cool ideas about how to reform the curriculum. And he was at that time 260 pounds and 6'2", big sort of reddish beard. And he often would bring cabers down to the middle of campus and get some of the guys mainly to sort of engage in caber tossing. That was kind of how I first knew him. Lifting was really my first sport. I mean, what an amazing supporter he was. He has always had my back in everything.
It was that background that we shared both as athletes and later as scholars that led us to create this facility so that people would have a place to come. It's interesting to see how it's developed, how it's consistent with the culture, and there's no evidence that it's going to stop.
We feel if you want to call a man the strongest man in the world, you need to have events that represent strength.
I continued always to be interested in strength. The great strong men that came over 100 years before my time, and stories about them filled me with excitement. And I began collecting, and I just couldn't get enough of it. I wanted to get it, and I wanted to get more.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, with that, let's give a round of applause for all these unbelievable legends on stage to honor the great Terry Todd. Now, normally, to remember somebody, we'd have a moment of silence. But Dr. Todd loved strongman. And in strongman, it's not about being silent. It's about power, and it is about energy. So in his honor, I invite you all to join me in a moment of power. And I want to hear everybody at the top of their lungs one time. Give it up for Dr. Terry Todd. 3, 2, 1. And with that, let this competition roll on as we ask these gentlemen. Give them one more round of applause. Now, you're not going anywhere, because up here is my co-host. You already met him. Legendary figure. 2 times he represented the U.S. as an Olympic weightlifter. WWE Hall of Fame, and as they said, the inaugural winner of the Arnold Strongman World Championships. Ladies and gentlemen, the legendary Mark Henry!
An incredible tribute to an incredible man. I'm Sean Woodland alongside Dr. Bill Crawford. And Bill, to people in the strongman community, I know to you especially, Dr. Terry Todd was basically family.
Yes, Terry was like family to me, and it's a little difficult to speak right now, but Terry was a visionary, as you heard, but mostly Terry was a great friend, but mostly he gave people in strength sports a voice. He was our bard. He told the stories. He knew all the people. He gave us a chance to show ourselves. I know that men that would go to competitions and know that Terry was there would lift more weight just because they knew that the world would see that they would be lifting those weights because he would report out those results. And this voice is going to continue through us as we continue this tradition with strongman and these traditional events and with Terry's vision. And all of us will always owe something to this pioneer in sport. He actually was one of the creators of the sport of strongman in the modern times, and no one can ever refute that.
And he was one of the co-creators of the Arnold Strongman Classic, and the 2019 competition continues here. We are through 3 of 5 events, getting set for the 4th event of the competition. The event that just took place, so let's recap that. That was the Wheel of Pain. And the youngster from Ukraine, Alexei Novikov, set a blistering pace and had the distance to beat for most of the event. He went a distance of 113 feet even, and that one stood until Martins Licis, the Dragon, got onto the implement. A very steady pace for Licis, and he was able to edge out Novikov's mark. Martins Licis pushing the Wheel of Pain a distance of 119 feet, 9 inches. Thor Bjornsson, the overall leader after 2 events, was the last man onto the Wheel of Pain, and he was trying to track down Licis' top distance, and it was close. Bjornsson just could not make it. 6 inches short, and that gives Martins Licis his first event win of the competition. The overall standings now after 3 of 5 events, Thor Bjornsson with 29 out of a possible 30 total points. Martins Licis, courtesy of that last victory, moves into second all by himself and now trails Bjornsson by 6. Alexei Novikov is in third place by 1 point, but right now Alexei Novikov is getting checked by the medical team for an injury. He is not currently lined up to take a turn on the Austrian Oak. If he is cleared, he will be back in the competition, but Novikov getting checked by the medical team, and we will have more on that as it becomes available to us. The 4th of 5 events, the Austrian Oak, the athletes with 90 seconds for max reps, 430 pounds. Now, obviously, you got to be strong. We all know that. But there is a lot of technique involved with this implement.
Yes, the first thing that you need to do is have an efficient lift to the chest. You'll see the athletes squat down and turn their hands forward typically and roll the log back up to the top of the chest. The second key is after the implement is on your chest, because it's forward, it's not a barbell, because a barbell's on your shoulders. This is forward of your shoulders. You want to point your elbows back. You want to push back and up, because if you'll notice, the athletes have their hands well forward of their face. So the athletes that will be able to get this log overhead will be the ones that can push back and up the most efficiently.
Here is the order in which we will proceed. Jerry Pritchett will be the first man on the Austrian Oak, followed by Mateusz Kieliszkowski, who has been waiting for these final 2 events. They are really in his wheelhouse. Brian Shaw will go 3rd, and then we will work our way down to the overall leader, Thor Bjornsson. As now just 8 men out of the 10 that started this competition remain. But remember, Alexei Novikov, if he is cleared by the medical staff, will be back in the competition. And Jerry Pritchett will be the first man to lift this 430-pound Austrian Oak. Back-to-back 9th place finishes have basically knocked him out of contention for the overall win, and he's looking now to score some points just to get himself back up into the middle of this overall leaderboard.
This is a beautiful implement, very well balanced. It's heavy, but it's very well made. As you can see, it's even artistically made.
Pritchett is a guy who's been interested in strength training since he was 15 years old. Currently resides in Phoenix, Arizona, where he works as a metal fabricator for a public utilities transportation department and actually builds a lot of the equipment with which he trains for competition, and has been in the Arnold Strongman Classic every year since 2013. His best career finish was in 2017 when he finished in 3rd place overall, and now he approaches the Austrian Oak, 90 seconds for max repetitions at 430 pounds.
Notice how he has his hands turned over, squats down, drives up with his hips, and rolls it back. Now he's got his elbows in a forward position.
Pritchett will reset.
That's a long time to have 430 pounds up to your chest.
Back for his 2nd attempt. And Pritchett looks like he is done, and he will step away without recording a single repetition.
On the Austrian Oak, yes, and they'll have the secondary competition. He's got his elbows forward, and he's really trying to just push it back. See, his elbows are forward. That puts his hands in the position closer to his shoulders. If you actually hold your hands perpendicular to the floor, what will happen is you'll just drive up, but that up is directly in front of your face and out, and it'll fall forward.
Mateusz Kieloszkowski from Poland is next, and we saw this man attack a similar implement. It was lighter, it was in Santa Monica, but just basically ripped that thing off the ground and put it over his head in no time. He has been waiting for this event.
Yes, 385 for the Santa Monica implement. This is much heavier at 430 pounds. And he used sort of a snatch technique that all dazzled us.
There was very little pause at the shoulders there on the pier in Santa Monica, but again, this implement much heavier. The Austrian Oak, 430 pounds, and here goes Kieloszkowski on his first attempt. And one rep.
Excellent.
For Mateusz Kieloszkowski.
It's not if he's going to do it, but how many times? We need you right here.
Here's attempt number 2 now. Mateusz Kieloszkowski out of Poland.
His upper body legendary.
He's really muscling it up.
Elbows are forward, up and back.
And that'll be 2. Mateusz Kieloszkowski picking up right where he left off in Santa Monica, not having a whole lot of trouble with the Austrian Oak. 2 reps and counting.
The incomparable Sadrunas Savickas, 8-time champion here, finished with 4 repetitions with this implement one year.
3rd attempt for Kieloszkowski. Oh, and the crowd was trying to will that thing over his head, but Kieloszkowski will exit with 2 good reps, and he is the early leader.
Those are 2 big repetitions because he
is showing so much courage. 2 years ago.
Okay, elbows are forward, hip drive, and then up and back. Locks his arms against the down signal. Elbows are forward, up and back. Excellent technique.
Brian Shaw will step up to the Austrian Oak next. Best finish of the competition was the elephant bar deadlift, where he finished 2nd. Has been dealing with a bit of a hamstring issue that he aggravated in that lift and has gone back-to-back 8th place finishes since that opening event.
Brian excels at static events. So there are 3 basic categories of strongman events: grip events, static events where you stand in place like a deadlift or an overhead press, and then strength endurance, typically like moving to load something like stones or carry something or push something.
You can see that bandage wrapping his left hamstring. He was having that thing worked on quite a bit after day 1 of competition. It was after the Husafell stone carry. He was back behind the stage here, receiving quite a bit of treatment on that leg, and has it wrapped, and he's going to go.
It's probably a high hamstring insertion area that's bothering him.
Asking for the Oak to be adjusted just slightly.
Attention to detail is legendary.
He's very good with overhead events.
He is chalked up.
Brian Shaw has been at this competition every year since 2010, and he has won it 3 times.
This is going to challenge his mental strength. He's got an injury, and he's still pushing on.
First attempt for Brian Shaw. Mateusz Kieloszkowski is your early leader with 2 complete repetitions. And 1 down, yes, for Brian Shaw. In a lift like this, how much of a factor is your hamstring?
Well, you have to be able to stabilize yourself and to push your hips forward and lock yourself under a weight. The hamstring glute mechanism is very important. You can't flex your hips forward if you've got a high hamstring issue, typically.
Inside a minute now for Brian Shaw. 2nd attempt. The crowd trying to help out Brian Shaw, and he will not be able to lock that one out. And
Wow,
you can tell the leg is bothering him a little bit there. He has time for one more attempt.
Brian Shaw's going to go again. This is insane. 15 seconds. Come on.
He's going to have to hurry.
The heart of a champion.
Brian Shaw, 8 seconds to clear this one.
It will not happen for Brian Shaw as you can tell how much he's hurting. And you said it earlier at the beginning of the day, there was some doubt as to whether or not he was going to be in the competition, and you quickly said, no, Brian Shaw is going to compete.
Yes, he will compete, even in pain and with those restrictions. Now, here's his good attempt that he got over his head. Push with his hips, elbows up and back. Had a difficulty. Notice how he staggered. That's because he had difficulty actually flexing his hips forward, locking out.
Brian Shaw saying thank you to the crowd, and
everyone here was behind him, including me.
And they know that this man is not 100%, and he is still gutting through this competition. That will give way to the man on the bottom left of your screen, Matjaž Belšak, making his second career appearance at the Arnold Strongman Classic. He was 6th overall in 2018.
Now look, he's turning his attention to another competitor to say, come on, let's go, let's get it done.
Belšak has gotten better with every event. Started out with that 7th in the opening event and then 4th in the Wheel of Pain that kicked off the second and final day of competition here at the Arnold Strongman Classic. The second to last event, 5 total events in the most prestigious strongman competition in the world. A lot of money on the line here too. The winner taking home $72,000.
So these athletes, when they get older, get better at static events. So as a young athlete like Matjaž, very important to continue to develop that static strength with deadlifts and overhead pressing, squatting strength.
So far, Kalishkovsky with 2 reps, the mark to beat.
But he had a definite improvement in his deadlift, so his static events are improving year to year.
Belšak will be the 4th man to take on the Austrian Oak, the 4th of 8 strongmen here in event number 4. First attempt for Belšak.
Right up! Belšak, the power!
Belšak has to stabilize it. He will not get credit for that rep. The athletes do have to wait for a signal from the judge.
Yes.
Now going back to the chalk.
So he pushed back, but probably pushed back a little bit too much, and it goes behind him. He did that at Santa Monica also.
Here's attempt number 2 for Belšak. Once again, a little trouble getting it to his shoulders, but now just cannot complete the press.
He rolled his eyes up. That was a golden opportunity to lock that out, which he had, but he couldn't get his feet placed. You have to have your body under control, under the implement, to get the down signal from the judge. And nobody's better at understanding this than Magnus for Magnuson, the head judge.
Magnus for Magnuson is right in front of Matjaž Belšak. He's at the bottom of your screen right now. His 3rd attempt for Matjaž Belšak.
Elbows are forward.
The press is not going to happen, and Belšak calls it.
Just didn't have enough diesel to finish it up.
Only 2 men so far have been able to get that thing overhead. That's not just Kalishkovsky, who's still your leader with 2 complete repetitions, and Brian Shaw was able to complete 1. The first part of this looked good for Belšak. It was the finish that he just couldn't put together.
Up and back, but it went a little bit behind him. He couldn't stabilize himself, and he knows he lost a golden opportunity. That fishing up to the chest, just couldn't get it up. I can tell you when you have a heavy log up to your shoulders like that, you don't feel the pressure so much in your shoulders. You feel it a little bit in your lower back. Mostly you feel it in your abdominal muscles.
Your current standings, as we are now halfway through the 8 athletes. Kalishkovsky from Poland, still your leader with 2 complete repetitions, and Brian Shaw with 1. Mikhail Shivlikov is up next. Started off great with a tie for third in the elephant bar deadlift, a seventh and a fifth in the wheel of pain.
So getting a repetition with this implement then puts you ahead of all others who do not and have to go to the lighter implement.
Come on, Shivlikov.
Shivlikov trying to get himself fired up. The Siberian Force getting set to take on the Austrian Oak.
Get ready for the man in the black beret from the Russian Special Forces, Mikhail Shivlikov. He's coming up to check, waiting for the whistle.
Shivlikov making sure everything is in the position in which he would like it.
Here we go.
Now Mikhail Shivlikov
90 seconds, the mark to beat.
will have 90 seconds to complete as many repetitions as possible, getting the crowd behind him. Checks with Magnus Mervagnuson, the head judge, and now Mikhail Shivlikov on attempt number 1.
Whistles on. All right, 90 seconds.
Pitching to the chest.
And the press is good as Magnus Mervagnuson gives him the signal. One down from Mikhail Shivlikov, now the third man to be able to lift that over his head.
Get a reset. He's got over a minute left.
He's going to take his time, reset just a bit. Notice how most of these lifters, these strongmen, are using lifting shoes with that heel on them. And the reason for that is when you push back with that implement, it allows you to lean back onto your heels and maintain that position. Plus, it's a much more solid base to work from.
And that may not seem like a lot, but when you're dealing with something this heavy, just millimeters in positioning can make a difference.
Yes, and that's exactly it. It's that those tiny little details that make or break attempts at this level.
Second attempt for Mikhail Shivlikov.
Look at the match, Kevin.
He gets this, he would tie for the lead. And that is good for the Siberian Force, and he has tied with Mateusz Kieliszkowski, pardon me, for the lead. Kieliszkowski earlier with 2 complete repetitions. And Mikhail Shivlikov will complete 2 as well. Great performance from the Siberian Force.
Gets it efficiently up, rolling it back. His elbows are forward, pushes back. Got to hold it. Notice his elbows are forward, pushing back over his face. It goes a little bit behind your head, but again, we're talking about the details of being able to lock it out. Something about those shoes as well.
2 successful reps on 2 attempts for Mikhail Shivlikov, and that will give way to Rano Heinla out of Estonia, who has been pretty impressive so far in this competition. Third in the Husafell Stone, had him tied for second place after day 1, but then he dropped down the leaderboard after a 6th place finish in the Wheel of Pain, trying to move back up into contention for one of those top 3 spots.
This is film review. This is actually doing a lot of lifting with the Oaks.
Yes, from Estonia, the land of George Hackenschmidt. So Strongman is alive and well
coming to the Oak
in his home country with the tradition.
He's been powerlifting and weightlifting since he was 10. First attempt for Rano Heinla on the Austrian Oak, 430 pounds.
There's the whistle.
195 kilos on that thing. Heinla quickly to work, but just cannot complete the press.
Had a good start with some hip drive. Looked a little sluggish, like the weight was trying to roll forward on him. So that's why you want to drive your elbows forward as hard as possible to lock that log onto your chest. It also puts your elbows in a better position to push up and back.
Only 3 of 5 men so far have been able to get the Austrian Oak over their heads. Rano Heinla, the 6th man out on this stage, now ready for his second attempt.
Seconds left, halfway through his time. Looking to get 2 reps. Can he get his first here?
Once again, gets it to the chest. Closer on the press, but still will not go. And Heinle will leave without a successful lift.
Yes, correct. The second attempt, he had a little more speed on it. What that does is it gives you a chance to have expended less energy to save for the upward movement of the implement overhead. A little quicker to the chest. Just couldn't get it over his face so that he can then drive completely back. Just to make a quick comment about him starting lifting at age 10. In the U.S., we're starting to have young athletes start in strength sports earlier.
Martins Licis, who currently sits in second place after his win in the Wheel of Pain. We saw him win that Arnold Strongman Classic in Santa Monica, and that was when we really figured out that this kid was going to be a contender when he got here.
Yes, he's someone that always comes on stronger through the end of the competition.
And he gets right to work. First attempt for Licis. And he will lock it out. And now sits in a tie for second place with Brian Shaw in this event. Right to work on attempt number 2. And Licis will hit that one and is now tied for the lead with Maciej Kieliszkowski and Mikhail Shivlikov with 2 successful reps, and he still has plenty of time.
He wants to dig down and get this third rep. This would definitely separate him from the competition.
Looking to keep the pressure on Hafthor Bjornsson. Martins Licis just 6 points back of Bjornsson in the overall standings coming into this event. 1 event remains after this. Third attempt for the Dragon.
Quickly up to the chest.
At least he's out of gas, but does tie for the best mark so far with 2 successful reps. And he did not waste a whole lot of setup time. He got right to work on this thing, and back-to-back quick, successful reps for Martins Licis.
Elbows are forward, backing up. Notice that on the first rep and actually the second rep, he's got that right foot back just a little bit. Pushing up and able to lock it.
2 successful attempts from Martins Licis, and now the overall leader in your defending Arnold Strongman Classic Champion, Hafthor Bjornsson, set a record in the elephant bar deadlift with a lift of 1,045 pounds, then won the Husafell stone carry to go back-to-back on day 1, and was only 6 inches away from beating Martins Licis in the Wheel of Pain.
Yes, the Icelandic giant. His father's probably close to 7 feet tall, and his grandfather is too, and they're both here in the audience watching him.
They are an easy family to spot walking through the crowd. One more look at the overall standings coming into this final attempt. The overall standings in this event, 3 men have completed 2 repetitions. Martins Licis the most recent, and then Brian Shaw completed 1.
He really needs to hit 2 reps and get himself in that pack. But then he can completely separate himself from the pack with a 3rd repetition.
Hafthor Bjornsson just needs to stay close to Martins Licis, the man immediately behind him in the overall standings. Bjornsson leads Licis by 6 points coming into this event, and this is his first attempt on the Austrian Oak. 430 pounds, 195 kilos. And that is easy for Hafthor Bjornsson. 1 successful rep is in. Hafthor, one of the few athletes in the field who actually weighs more than the log.
So it's giving him a little bit more in his legs. You don't have to really bounce so much.
Just needs 1 more to tie himself with the 3 other athletes who have completed 2 repetitions.
Clearing his head a little bit there.
The Mountain asks for some help from the crowd, and they will gladly give it to him on attempt number 2.
Help them out now, here, folks.
Bjornsson locks that out, and he has tied for the lead. And he has more time left on the clock if he wants to make another attempt.
He needs this attempt, and he'll basically lock down the competition overall.
Third attempt for the mountain.
Plenty of time.
No problem to the chest. And Bjornsson just cannot get under it. 2 reps, though, will tie him with 3 other men in this event. Thanking the crowd. And Hafthor Bjornsson will remain your overall leader heading in to the final event that will be later on tonight, the stone to shoulder. But he mauled that thing up on his first attempt.
Yes, super efficient up, very, very quickly up.
On the main stage with the stone to shoulder.
Elbows are forward.
You enjoy the Strongman Championship.
Up and back.
I said, are you enjoying
Another thing when you get a really heavy weight overhead like that is fighting that pressure in your abdominal muscles forward and making sure that you can lock the weight over your head.
And now the lighter log will come out. That's 385 pounds. The athletes who did not complete a single lift on the heavier log will now get to attempt that.
So just to set this up just a little bit, Sean, in Ravensburg Madness about 15 years ago set the world's record in the log press with 385 pounds. This is the consolation log now, just to try to get as many reps as possible. So that shows you the evolution of strongman and how being event-specific and working with these logs has evolved over this time period.
Jerry Pritchett will be up first. He is one of 3 men who did not record a successful lift on the Austrian Oak. Matjaž Belšak and Ronald Heinle were the other 2.
It really does make a big difference. Now they're fighting for points. These points are placements. Placements is money. These are professional athletes. They know what they're doing.
Jerry Pritchett approaching the log, 385 pounds now. And he will go for as many repetitions as he can in 90 seconds. And Pritchett struggling, but he will get credit for it as Magnus Magnuson gives him the down signal.
A little more ginger. He's not trying to be too explosive coming up with a little bit of an issue, one of his hamstrings.
Here's attempt number 2. Pritchett will call it, but he does get 1 successful lift. Jerry Pritchett with just 1 event remaining.
We kind of closed it out too soon. There's a lot left.
And everything was good about this lift, and then the only part he really struggled with was getting over his head.
Yes, because he had a little bit of distance with the log when he got it up to his chest. But again, locking your hips out, all those muscles that pertain to the posterior chain of the rector muscles in the back and the hamstrings, you need those muscles intact.
Matjaž Belšak is up next. And he is another man who has improved as this competition has gone on. He grew up in a family of cooking enthusiasts. His parents own a restaurant in Slovenia, and he actually works there sometimes as an apprentice chef. His powerlifting career began at the junior stages. He was 17 years old, and he won the 2017 Arnold Classic Europe Strongman and the 2017 Arnold Classic Poland, and he was a points qualifier in the overall standings to get here to the 2019 Arnold Strongman Classic and trying to improve on his 6th place finish from last year.
Not making his belt too tight, just trying to get a little something for the abdominal wall to push on.
All right, he's approaching the bar.
Opposite of what people think of. The weightlifting belt really doesn't help your lower back as much as it helps you push your abdominal wall against something.
Let's get 90 seconds, as many reps.
Matjaž Belšak 385 pounds, 90 seconds for as many repetitions as he can get. And that is one good repetition for the man from Slovenia, and that one looked like no problem.
Yes, a very routine lift for him.
Once again, every man that did one
He's now tied with Jerry Pritchett, who also has just one successful attempt at this weight. Here's lift number 2. And Belshak will get credit for that one.
Very little hip flexion to drive that up with his hips. More of a strict press. He was very, very close with the Austrian Oak.
Two successful attempts, and remember this implement, regardless of how many times you lift it, will not leapfrog you over the men who got at least one successful attempt on the Austrian Oak. This is now for placement.
Correct.
Belshak going for 3. It's not done yet.
27 seconds.
Now lining up for attempt number 4.
Here we go. Look at this third rep.
2 good lifts for Maciej Belshak to put him ahead of Jerry Pritchett. One more man remains, and that is Ronald Heinle.
Another young athlete that needs to work on his static strength.
After the guys finish lifting the feather.
Here we go. Good hip flexion. Very explosive up. Elbows forward.
In this event. So Ronald Heinle now.
Back and above, gets the down signal.
He looked real good getting the big bar up.
Very good.
Here's Ronald Heinle from Estonia. He won the 2018 Arnold Classic Australia Championship to qualify here. 6-time Estonia's strongest man. And again, we mentioned started weightlifting at a very young age and started competing in strongman in 2000. 6 years ago, he tore his right Achilles tendon, and doctors told him he'd just have to recover from it. His leg actually swelled, and in his words, began to rot. 10 centimeters of his tendon were removed, and 6 surgeries later, he finally recovered and says it's an injury that he still feels to this day. And now his first attempt at the 385-pound log, and that is no problem for Heinle.
Yes, he handled a 385-pound log at the Santa Monica Arnold Strongman Classic quite well. Several repetitions. This will springboard him above Pritchett, and also in front of Belshak. He gets another repetition with this 385-pound log.
Belshak got 2. Can Heinle get
Pritchett
2?
with 1 successful lift on this piece of equipment. Belshak had 2, so Heinle now on his 2nd attempt. And it looks like Heinle may not have gotten credit for that. He had it above his head, but he did not get the down signal. That is a lot of wasted effort.
Well, we call that a postcard lift. If you took a picture at the right time, it looked like an overhead lift.
This is the 3rd attempt for Heinle. He needs to wait for Magnus's signal. He's at the bottom of your screen, and there it is, and that lift will count.
Still 30 seconds
It's still plenty of time for Ronald Heinle to make another attempt.
Magnus is a great judge. If it wasn't set, he wouldn't have given them the down signal. So
Heinle struggling with it and won't be able to get it over his head. So 2 good lifts for Ronald Heinle will tie him with Maciej Belshak. And Jerry Pritchett will finish with 1, as the 4th of 5 events at the 2019 Arnold Strongman Classic are now in the books. And Hafthor Bjornsson will take his lead into the final event and try to lock up his 2nd consecutive Arnold Strongman Classic Championship. Final results: 4 men with 2 successful lifts. Bjornsson was the final man to log 2. Brian Shaw gets 1. And then on the lighter log, Maciej Belshak and Ronald Heinle both get 2. And it's Jerry Pritchett who will finish in 8th place with 1 good lift on that 385-pound log. So one more look at some of the men who were able to get the Austrian Oak up and over their heads more than once. We start with Maciej Kieliszkowski.
Well, the Austrian Oak actually has a larger diameter, and that's one of the reasons it's harder to overcome than the smaller log.
Martins Licis went quickly with good back-to-back repetitions. Was unable to get a third. And now Hafthor Bjornsson, who just needed to stay close to Licis in order to not surrender too much of his lead. He does just that with 2 good lifts. And here are your unofficial point standings after 4 events. Hafthor Bjornsson increases his lead now to 9 points over Martins Licis. Mikhail Shilikov moves into 3rd. Ronald Heinle is now in 4th. Maciej Kieliszkowski is in 5th. The disappointing competition for Brian Shaw continues as he is in 6th place. And Alexei Novikov, who was in 3rd to start this event, again, he was getting checked out by the medical team for an injury. He may not be out of the competition. He did not participate in this. If he is cleared, he will return. He's been impressive so far. 4 events are down. 1 remains. We will step aside for a moment, but the action is not done. The Rogue Record Breakers continues when we return to the Arnold Strongman Classic in Columbus, Ohio.
First of all, round of applause. You saw those people working hard to get this stage.
The feats of strength continue here at the Greater Columbus Convention Center. The Arnold Strongman Classic. It's the Rogue Record Breakers in a new event for the women. Thanks for staying with us, everybody. I'm Sean Woodland with Dr. Bill Crawford. Women's Monster Dumbbell. The winner of this event will set the new women's record and take home $5,000 in the process. 4 women vying for that prize money. In the event of a tie, they will split that. There are 3 dumbbells on the stage, 135 pounds, 150 pounds, and 165 pounds. The athletes will get 1 attempt on each dumbbell, and then they will have 90 seconds for the final 165-pound dumbbell.
Again, they have 60 seconds to do that for 1 rep.
Kristen Rhodes will be first. The athletes need to bring the dumbbell off the ground to their shoulder, and then it's a matter of time how many repetitions they can get pressing it out over their heads.
Yes, very impressive. These kind of weights were actually more open strongman competition weights just 20 years ago for one-arm press, so these are strong women. The event of the sport of strong woman is evolving.
You only have to do the qualifiers 1 time.
4 women are in this field: Donna Moore, Andrea Thompson, Lisa Ingalls, and Kristen Rhodes.
4-time world's strongest man, Magnus Magnuson. So, the ladies drew lots in random order. First up, starting
just like the men. Salts, yes.
The women doing the same kind of thing to get themselves fired up.
Absolutely. Clears your head, lowers your inhibitions.
Kristen Rhodes will be up first. She's the granddaughter of shot putter Bill Nider and the niece of middle distance runner Tim Danielson, so athletics in her family. Started her strong woman training under the guidance of her husband, who is a California Highway Patrol officer and a competitive strongman himself, and her first competition in Santa Cruz, California in 2006. And no problem getting that 135-pound dumbbell to her shoulder, up and overhead. And no problem for Kristen Rhodes.
She moves on to the next weight. Very easily handled.
One more look, and I mean this.
You turn your elbow out, and that puts the center of the weight closer to the spine, so when you drive your hips upward, the dumbbell has a better chance of going up.
Here's Donna Moore, British strongwoman and winner of the 2016 and 2017 World's Strongest Woman competition, and she has no problem as well. And that thing looks like a Tinker toy right now.
Easily handled.
Andrea Thompson from Melton, England, 36-year-old mother of 2. She actually started training because she just wanted to lose weight, and someone said, hey, you are crazy strong. You should try this stuff.
And she finds herself on the high altar of strength, the main stage at the Arnold.
$135 pounds, and Andrea Thompson will make that lift.
We are ready to bring out the big boys. Here we go.
Notice again, many of the lifters are using those lifting shoes. Okay, elbows out to the side. Puts the center of balance closer to the spine, transmitting that hip drive up.
And this is basically a formality for these 4 women. This is Lisa Ingalls. And that is good. So all 4 women get through the 135-pound dumbbell, and we will move up to the 150-pound dumbbell. Again, they just have to make 1 good repetition at all these weights to move on.
She had a lot of upward power. She puts a little more hip thrust inside of it.
We move on now to the 150-pound dumbbell. Steve Slater lugging that thing to the center of the stage.
The Fortissimus competition in 2009 had a dumbbell pressing competition that started for the professional strongmen with a 150-pound dumbbell.
Back to Kristen Rhodes. That is incredible, by the way. It just shows you how far athletes have come since then. Rhodes has it to her shoulder, and Rhodes has the 150 pound dumbbell up and had to get out of the way, but that rep will count.
Lots of leg drive. Really didn't have to push out too much with her elbow. In other words, it went straight overhead just from hip drive.
Here's Donna Moore now stepping up to the 150 pound dumbbell from Colburn, North Yorkshire in England. Has been competing since 2012.
2 hands up to the shoulder. Balancing it.
Oh. Can't quite lock it out. She does not need to reset. She can return it to her shoulder.
Yes. She has time. Up to the shoulder, getting that back low behind her ear.
Moore with her third attempt and will not be able to make the press, and she will bow out, and that will leave now 3 women remaining.
So she got that right glow behind her ear. Just doesn't have enough upward drive. Notice she's got an elbow sleeve on. Many strong women, strong men actually use the elbow sleeve.
There's Andrea Thompson. First attempt for her at 150 will count. She stays alive.
Crazy strong. Very good. That was a very efficient lift. Back low behind the ear, pushes up, extends the arm, locks it out.
They are allowed to drop that weight after getting credit for a rep. Now, Leifla Ingalls, who was a CrossFit athlete who would just do strength stuff in her backyard, made her own Atlas stones and would train by herself, and then entered a local strong woman competition and finished 4th and said, hey, I'm pretty good at this. I might as well keep going. And she has that 150 pound dumbbell up and over her head, and she will get credit for that. 3 women are now through to the final 165 pound dumbbell.
Okay, up to the shoulder, but her CrossFit explosiveness shows. Boom. Lots of hip drive, great timing. So if you have good timing, you can actually lock your hips and extend your shoulder and your elbow at the same time and get it overhead to lock.
Now the athletes will have 90 seconds for as many repetitions as possible at 165 pounds. And Steve Slater is earning his money lugging those things back and forth. Kristen Rhodes will be up first. That's Leifla Ingalls on the right of your screen. And Andrea Thompson, the other woman who will be making a run at 165 pounds.
That is something that CrossFit has done. It's exposed athletes that maybe lean more towards pure strength, like Olympic weightlifting, powerlifting, strongmen, strongwomen.
They are certainly familiar with it, but when they specialize in it, they can definitely excel. Now Kristen Rhodes. Through the hammer, discus, javelin, and shot put at San Diego State University.
Explosive athlete.
First attempt. And that is 1. Remember, 90 seconds, as many repetitions as possible, and the dumbbell does not need to return to the floor every time. Two for Rhodes.
Wow.
Remember, the winner of this event establishes the new record and earns $5,000. Here's attempt number 3. Not quite for Rhodes. Plenty of time left on the clock for her to make another attempt.
She's going to reload. Not wearing lifting shoes, so pretty confident in her stance when she gets the dumbbell overhead.
Here is attempt number 4 for Kristen Rhodes. Won't be able to lock it out, but 2 good attempts at 165 pounds for Kristen Rhodes, the early mark to beat, with 2 athletes remaining.
With that big hip push, being able to get the hip push and the arm lock coordinated. Oh, there you go. That will make a successful attempt.
Here's Andrea Thompson, looking to match 2 good repetitions at 165 pounds.
Also, too, a little bit more of a drop under the dumbbell will allow that hip and elbow and shoulder extension to lock out.
First attempt for Thompson. Won't be able to get the first one over her head. Still, remember, 90 seconds in which to get as many repetitions as possible. Plenty of time. Second attempt for Thompson.
To the shoulder efficiently. Oh, so close.
Just unable to complete that final little lockout. Looking to make a third attempt now and get 1 good repetition. And now, just out of gas, is Andrea Thompson will not be able to complete 1 lift. As Kristen Rhodes is your leader with 2, and there's 1 athlete remaining. It's Leifla Ingalls, who is now wrapping up her wrists and getting some encouragement from her opponent. 2 to tie, 3 to win. If they tie, they split the $5,000.
A real athlete wants the other athlete to do their very, very best. You only want to beat an athlete when they're at their best.
Ingalls competed in her first ever Arnold Strongman competition in 2016. She won it. First attempt at 165 for Ingalls. And that is good. Very explosive.
She has that great timing.
This will tie Kristen Rhodes for the lead. And Ingalls has that. She hits a third, she sets a record, and takes home $5,000. Third attempt for Ingalls. And just cannot stabilize it, but she did have it locked out.
Yes, she
so
did.
Close for Ingalls.
Yes, she did. She didn't push back quite enough, and it fell forward. She needs to push back just a little bit more, that little spot.
Plenty of time for Ingalls. She just needs 1 more to set the record and win $5,000. And cannot complete the lift, so it looks like Ingalls and Kristen Rhodes will tie, and they will split $5,000. A great effort from both athletes, and Ingalls just so close on her third attempt.
Great timing, all locked out. Frankly, I thought she was going to do 2 more of those, but it just shows how heavy the implement is. Stabilizes herself, gets under it. And you saw Jan Todd walk up and congratulate these women as they are making pioneering steps in strong woman, as Jan was a pioneering woman in strength athletics herself.
Leifla Ingalls and Kristen Rhodes will share the record and share the prize money. The Rogue Record Breakers is going to continue as the Dinnie Stone Lift and Hold is coming up next. Stay with us here on day 2 of the Arnold Strongman Classic and the Rogue Record Breakers. Thanks for staying with us, everybody, here today on a wonderful Saturday at the Arnold Sports Festival as the Rogue Record Breakers continues inside the Greater Columbus Convention Center. I'm Sean Woodland alongside Doc Rock, and that is relevant for this event, Dr. Bill Crawford, getting set for the Dinnie Stone replica lift and hold. Just the second event of the Rogue Record Breakers. It'll be taking place all weekend long. We'll have more Rogue Record Breakers for you tomorrow.
Hold on a second.
And the object of this one is simple. You got to pick up two really heavy stones, a total of 733 pounds, and hold them above the ground as long as you possibly can.
Yes, this lift is different than a regular deadlift. These are rings they cut into your hands. One weighs 321 and one weighs 413. And so they're unbalanced. Most of these athletes will straddle the stones because holding them side to side is almost impossible. You can't really stand up with them because of the girth of these stones.
And the man who currently holds the record for this will be first out. Mark Felix, who in 2017 held these Dinnie Stone replicas aloft for 31.36 seconds.
Yes, I had a chance to compete in that competition with Mark. So the Dinnie Stones are named after Donald Dinnie, the great Scottish athlete. I'd encourage everyone to watch the Stoneland movie or do some reading about the Dinnie Stones.
Mark Felix, I'll let you do the math, was born in 1966. So the term old man strength applies here.
He's got to hold them and balance them.
And that clock in the upper right-hand corner is unofficial, but will give you somewhat of an idea of how long he has held these things. And
he's not even hook gripping. You see his hands? He just reaches down with a true grip. That shows how strong this man's hands are. Former Britain's strongest man, many times world's strongest man competitor.
And now getting close.
He gets heavy. It's hitting you right in the back of the neck. Your grip starts to go.
Won't be able to beat his old record of 31.36 seconds, but still impressive. The winner of this event, assuming they break the record, receives $5,000, and Mark Felix with an impressive effort. 30.03 seconds.
Oh.
Barely misses it.
Barely misses it.
The standard has been set.
Terry Hollins, another old friend. They're actually training partners, Terry and Mark.
And this guy was born big, 12 pounds, 14 ounces at birth.
Well, he's a former rugby player, many-time Britain's strongest man, many-time world's strongest man champion. Not champion, but podium athlete. I think placing as high as third.
Speaking with Ode Haugen, what's Haugen probably telling him right now?
Once he picks him up, they're up.
Just hang on, probably.
Yep.
There goes Terry Hollins. Mark Felix has the best time, but it is not the record, 30.03 seconds.
740 pounds.
Showing the strain.
And the stones are down. Terry Hollins, about 17 seconds. We'll wait for the official announcement.
Yes, he's from Britain, and so I'm sure he's been up to lift those stones in Scotland. They're at a hotel in Petark.
Brian Shaw in the bottom left, hanging out to watch this. Currently competing in the Arnold Strongman Classic, and that will bring out Jeremy Hogue, the 46-year-old from New Zealand. Competed in his first strongman competition in 2006 and was hooked from there. Also played some Aussie rules football and has a swimming background as well.
So a lot of this is actually, again, we talk about efficiency. It's being able to lift those stones and get into a comfortable place with an upright position as much as possible.
How about this? Jeremy Hawk from Australia.
Clock will start once he lifts them. The record again, 31.36 seconds.
And a new record in the Dinnie stone hold. And the winner
And his grip slips immediately.
Oh, I don't know if they even give him a time. I guess a half a second.
Asking if he gets another attempt. If that
No,
would even
once
count.
it slips, that's it. It broke the ground. You're done.
One more look.
Okay, not using a hook grip, a true grip, but his hand just comes free with that heavy stone. That shows that it is this legendary lift is something.
Valiant effort for Jeremy Hogue, but unfortunate that his hand just slips.
Stefan Solvi Peterson. Solvi.
He was just 20 years old when he won his first major senior strongman title, becoming Iceland's strongest Viking. That was in 2006. Prior to that, he had concentrated on powerlifting.
Icelanders, most of them have really strong hands. So that's the replica insignia. These were made by Gordon Dinnie, a descendant of Donald Dinnie. And they were brought to America by Dr. Todd, both Jan and Terry.
Stefan Solvi Peterson looking to set a new record. 31.36 seconds is the time to beat.
Wow, the thumbs free method. He's not even locking with his thumbs. He's just using the strength of his fingers, holding them well. Oh.
About 10 seconds, and Stefan Solvi Peterson thanking the crowd and giving Oudhaugen a handshake.
I can tell you that also what you don't see is that there's really intense pressure on the inside of your elbows, because that thing is just really pulling down. That sounds obvious, but I mean, really, 400 pounds in one hand and 300 pounds in the other hand.
Stefan Solvi Peterson talking with Steve Slater and Jan Todd. Brian Shaw is also there. And now we bring out Andy Shadoo.
So these rings are smaller. The front ring on the big stone is actually a little bit smaller in diameter and in thickness than the Dinnie stone ring.
Shadoo is 37 years old, and he's from Germantown, Maryland.
Let's get it done. Support this man, Andy Shadow.
He's got him up. Feeling good.
Mark Felix still has the best time, and he is the record holder, 30.03 seconds. That was his first attempt. Brian Shaw in the background shouting words of encouragement. And you do get a sense now just how difficult this is. These are, again, some of those powerful men in the world who are stepping up in this thing.
Yes.
Jits Kramer is up next. He is out of the Netherlands, and he was almost competing in the Arnold Strongman Classic because Alexei Novikov was having some visa difficulties, and Kramer was ready to step in his place. He was a tennis player from the age of 8 to 19 and then started competing in strongman in 2009.
He makes those stones look small. This is a big man. He's also from Friesland, not just Holland, from Friesland. And Frieslanders are known for hand strength. They're very, very strong people. A lot of stone cutters in Friesland. Quickly up, looks pretty comfortable. I'd recommend that he leans back a little bit and make a more upright posture with the stones, but he's looking good.
And Kramer has the stones down. No one has really gotten close to the opening attempt from the current record holder, Mark Felix. 31.36 seconds is the mark to beat, a new record, and then $5,000 if you can beat that mark. And Nathan Burchett, who is a Highland Games competitor, will be up next.
Yes, Nathan actually competed in the Rogue Professional Highland Games event earlier today. This is Nathan Burchett. Nathan's very, very familiar with ringed implements as he does throw Highland Games. He waits for distance and waits for height. So I am certain he's going to put a hook grip on this because that's what you do in Highland Games. And I think he's actually been to Scotland. I know he's been to Scotland, and he's actually made attempts at
Can he do this? Remember, there can be only one.
Wearing the kilt.
The man is wearing a kilt, so I know he's very
Easily up. He's got the hook grip. Watch for a big mark. Come on, Nathan. That right hand. He's holding. Breathing. Oh. Great attempt, though. Great attempt.
Looks like it was just under 15 seconds for Nathan. Two competitors remain, as it looks like that record may be getting closer to standing here.
I don't know. This next competitor, Mike Zolkowicz, a world record holder previously in the professional 56-pound weight over bar, longtime professional strongman athlete, a longtime Highland Games athlete. Very prodigious grip.
I went to Southern Connecticut State College, and he was a track and field athlete throwing the shot put and the discus. His coach was from Scotland and introduced him to the Highland Games.
I've known Mike for a long time. Good pull. He needs to pull back, get a more solid posture with those stones.
Already straining quite a bit.
Yes.
Oh, can't get to 10 seconds. One athlete will remain.
So Mark basically threw down the gauntlet and let everybody else chase him.
Brad Ardrey from Lancaster, England. The final man to try and chase down Mark Felix's record that was set in 2017 of 31.36 seconds. Has been training as a strongman now for the last 10 years.
So this guy has been.
So what you don't really see is when you stand over these stones, you look down, they are really huge. What I recommend typically is you grip the small one first and then lean back on it, and that allows you to have a little more balance to pull back on it. On the big stone, it acts as ballast. So he's got a hook grip. Let's see what happens.
713 total pounds. One of those stones is 321. The other is 413.
Showing some strain, but he's going to his quiet place, blocking out the pain, fighting to hold on every second, every second, every second. He's looking, he's trying, he's pit. Oh.
Gets to about the 20-second mark, and that will be it.
Yeah.
No record broken, as 31.36 seconds will survive another year, Bill.
That was really fun to watch. Always a great attempt. I'm a little bit, I'll have to admit, I held him for 28.3 seconds a couple of years ago. So
you would have been second in this event, so congratulations. That's impressive.
Yes, it would have been, and Mark and I were both the over 50 crowd as well. Talking a little bit about old man strength. This is a graphic example of that.
We understand there may be one more competitor to go. We don't know.
Oh, wait a minute. Then maybe this is the one that will come out and really challenge. This is you win the $5,000 or you do not. So either someone comes out and beats Mark or they do not.
And this was open to anyone to sign up.
Yes, and I also believe the $5,000 goes to break Mark's record of 31.36, and he was at 30.03, I believe.
That's correct. That was his Mark Felix with the opening score. He had the best time out of anybody, out of the 9 athletes we've seen so far. We're being told that one of the coaches, one of the athletes has said, all right, I'll give it a try, and now just signing some final paperwork.
We'll see.
And we'll try to get a name on this person.
This is it, the final attempt at the Dinnie stone roll.
But this would make this record breakers event so special is that literally anybody can step up and do it.
I think Simon said at the last minute, hell, I'm gonna give it a try.
They had a registration. Well, if he's coaching someone to lift the Dinnie stones, he probably knows what he's doing. I would hope.
And the win is with
And that is about all it's going to take.
Well, you heard Mark Felix say the wind beneath the stones. That's what the Scots talk about for a successful lift, just breaking those off the ground. Donald Dinnie used he and his father were stonemasons. They used these stones to make a platform and be able to work on bridges.
Well, so far it has been a busy day at the Arnold Sports Festival. Martins Licis wins the Wheel of Pain. And then the Austrian Oak four-man tie with 2 lifts. We have one event remaining as Hafthor Bjornsson looks to lock up his 2nd straight Arnold Strongman Classic Championship. We will be here with all the action at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. For Dr. Bill Crawford, I am Sean Woodland, and we will see you later on tonight for the final event of the 2019 Arnold Strongman Classic.